I am the current chairman of the Clearwater Regional Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the board of the chamber really starting back in 2008. And the reason I got involved is y'all might remember a little case called the Complete Angler case, which was a local bait shop in Clearwater that painted a mural of fish on the side of his building, and the city planning department, code department determined that that was commercial speech because he was a bait shop and he had a mural of fish on the side of his building, and they started to code enforce against him. That got a lot of publicity, ended up being somewhat minor national news, and eventually a federal court ruled that it was not commercial speech, that it was a mural, and therefore it was artwork. You know, at that point I had just gotten out of law school. I kind of focused on constitutional law and First Amendment laws, kind of a side focus to developing my practice. And I said, you know, this is an area where I think I can practically get involved and help through the Chamber of Commerce, maybe write a more business-friendly sign code, and then focus on some other regulations that maybe could be tweaked to make things a little more user-friendly here in Clearwater. And from there, the city actually formed a business task force, which I was on for 3 years and was the chairman of, and we developed 73 specific recommendations relating to pretty much all aspects of the city, but focused mainly on the community development code and the way the city works with businesses and property owners to make the city quote-unquote more business-friendly. About 2/3 of those, maybe 60% of those, were implemented by the council, but it was like anything, working with any government, it took 3 years, it took a long time, and it was well worth it, but it was certainly a challenge. But our group was successful, I think, mainly because we had a diverse representation of the community. So it wasn't just business owners, it wasn't just land use attorneys, it wasn't just architects and engineers. We had neighborhood coalition presidents, we had people representing you know, the citizens. And so I think we took our time and we were really deliberate, and I think that really helped us with our ability to get things done with the council, because we had a lot of public knowledge that we were able to impart through going to different town hall meetings and really spreading the message before taking it to the council, which was very very helpful, and I think should be a model going forward for anything that we try to do in Clearwater, especially as it relates to our city charter, our downtown waterfront, our bluff, and our master plan that we're going to be developing for that. So after somehow in the mix of all that, I ended up becoming general counsel for the PCREC. So you all know that I also serve in that role. I was appointed by Governor Scott to the Juvenile Welfare Board in 2010, and I'm currently serving as the vice chairman of that board. And like I said, now I'm completing my term as chairman of the regional chamber, which my term will be complete this February 2016, and then I'll become the immediate past chair. And coincidentally enough, our PCREC chair, Nick DeSigli, was the chair of the chamber while I was the chair-elect of the chamber. So we had some good Republican representation in the Chamber of Commerce. So really today, again, we can talk about, focus on whatever you want. I brought you 2 handouts. We're not going to go through them in great detail, but just for your information, for you to take, and you can see. In 2014, in June 2014, the city of Clearwater engaged the Urban Land Institute to come into Clearwater and do basically a week-long study. When they interviewed over 150 people from across the community, business owners, stakeholders, citizens, about just everything about Clearwater. And they did a very comprehensive review and study, and I provided you with their PowerPoint presentations. It's 97 slides, so again, we're not going to go through the whole thing. But then they ended up drafting a major report that the city is using as a basis going forward to try to, it's really focused on downtown, but to try to activate and engage a discussion on how we're going to move forward with downtown. And so one of the things that they suggested was that we need to create, like I said, that broad-based, diverse group of citizen stakeholders from across the entire city to work with a consultant on developing a master plan for the Clearwater, what I'll refer to as downtown bluff and waterfront. And that's really all the property running from Pierce Street, City Hall, down Pierce Street to the boat slips, and then down around up to Cleveland Street, excuse me, actually Drew Street, to Osceola. So from the Clearwater Main Library, Coachman Park, across to where those tennis courts are down there on the bluff, and then up to City Hall, is all land that's requires a referendum in the city charter for anything to happen there. I mean, really anything. In order to, we all recognize that land is a tremendous asset for the community, and it's underutilized. And when I say underutilized, I don't necessarily mean development. I'm not talking about private condos and things like that. I'm talking about use. I'm talking about people going there and enjoying it and using it, like a park. You know, you look at Largo Central Park, it's amazing. You know, we go there for every holiday. My family and I go there, but we don't have that really in Clearwater. And it's, you know, we need to do something to make that space more usable and, you know, more just more available for our tourists and our citizens to go down there with their families and to enjoy it. And that activity will obviously have a ripple effect throughout the rest of downtown, and that's especially the hope. So when we're talking about the bluff, I want to be real careful to make sure, you know, we're very clear. We're not necessarily talking about a lot of development. We're talking about activating it and using it as a park for obviously the benefit of the citizens and our tourists. So I'm also the chairman of the Clearwater Charter Review Committee, and we just met for 9 months, and we came together and we have some specific recommendations to amend the city charter. And I presented these to the City Council last Wednesday. And the first page here, you can see the highlight says, Council approved the following recommendations. And a lot of these recommendations were from the ULI report. And we considered them low-hanging fruit to kind of lay the groundwork for that bluff master planning process that's going to come in the near future. And that bluff master planning process will probably take 2 years. So you're looking at a master plan that will probably go to referendum in the 2018 timeframe. But some of these suggestions that we have are really designed to lay the groundwork for that process. And like I said, what we thought were potentially low-hanging fruit opportunities. We still have to work really hard to educate the community on these, because obviously anything related to the bluff and downtown is obviously of great interest to all the citizens. But these recommendations, like I said, to me are not controversial. Most of them I would describe as no-brainers, and it's on us, on me really, and my committee to go out and educate the community as to why these are such great opportunities for Clearwater. Hey, Bernie. Yeah. We're being really informal, by the way, so if you have questions or, yeah, exactly, yeah, you're good. So, if you look down at the second set of bullet points there, sub D, sub 6, this is really related, these suggestions are all related to that waterfront. So there's 3 areas of the waterfront that I want you to conceptualize, and 3 different kind of provisions in the charter. One is the main library. So the main library was developed in the year 2000 after a referendum campaign that successfully got the existence of the library to be permitted in that section of the charter. And it was completed in 2004. But ULI recognizes, we all recognize, the library is a beautiful building. I don't know, if y'all haven't been in there, you should go in there, walk up the stairs, and get to the second level and third level, turn around and look. It's an amazing view. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful view. It's over 90,000 square feet. That's bigger than some state university libraries. We opened it in 2004, right when all this information that people utilize libraries for was becoming digitized, was becoming accessible, and really libraries are not utilized in the same way they were utilized in the 1970s, 80s, and early 90s. So we've got this beautiful, massive library. And again, like the other areas of the Coachman Park, it's underutilized, and by that I mean it's not used by enough people. And so one of the things that we've suggested is that the city should be able to lease portions of the main library for municipal uses. So municipal use is clearly anything that the city would be using it for, which obviously is not going to be adverse to a library use, or compatible commercial uses like restaurants, cafes, For example, we had a very popular restaurant in the Harborview Center called Pickles. Pickles Plus, very popular. It was always full at lunchtime, and the city has made it part of their downtown plan to tear down the Harborview Center at a certain point because it was a money loser. And so that was pretty much non-controversial. But what was a problem, what was something that we regret, is that necessitated Pickles moving on from the Harborview Center. And Pickles wanted to move into the library, but they couldn't because the charter doesn't allow for a restaurant to be in the library right now. So, you know, and picture, I always like to picture downtown Tampa and the riverfront there. I mean, you know, there are so many things for families to do just right there with the different water features and sitting down out on those steps. But you can also go sit and have a glass of wine at the Mise en Place little cafe in the museum. So you know, that kind of idea where you'd have a cafe or a restaurant or another compatible use. So it was funny, we were talking to the council, and the council wanted to really conceptualize this and talk it out. And they said, so we're not talking about a tattoo parlor. I said, no. Compatible commercial use with a library. So it wouldn't be anything that would be too too far afield from what people would be doing while reading books. Think about it like a Barnes & Noble, right? Most of the people in Barnes & Noble, a lot of them are sitting there drinking coffee and reading books, you know, or listening to music, or picking up a magazine. I mean, they're not necessarily just there, you know, looking at books and going to buy their book and leaving. So that would be, that's the recommendation related to the library. The second area to think about is Cushman Park itself, where the band shell is. And right now, that band shell is specifically, its location is specifically delineated in the charter. In other words, what happens if the band shell got damaged? What happens if we wanted to, you know, upgrade it? You probably can't. You know, legally you have an argument there about, well, you're not really, it doesn't say you can build a band shell, it just says there's a band shell there. And in this specific location. So what we wanted to do is to expand that a little bit and enable the city to be able to either move it or upgrade it. It would still be there. They can't tear it down. But to be able to renovate, update, and potentially relocate in the bluff area the band shell, and to provide for temporary seating. And that's a recommendation that Ruth Eckerd Hall was very, very interested in. It's not a Ruth Eckerd Hall recommendation. They're not, you know, there's no agreement for them to come manage it or anything like that, but they want to use that park like the Mahaffey uses the outdoor areas down by the Mahaffey, and I'm sure many other people do as well. So updating, renovating, potentially relocating on the bluff the amphitheater and band shell was our only recommendation related to Cushman Park itself. So then the rest of these bullet points relating to the bluff area relate to the downtown boat slips. And as y'all know, the downtown boat slips were approved in 2007 and have been a great amenity to bring people into that area. They're greatly used during 4th of July, Jazz Holiday Festival, anything that's going on in Cushman Park. But again, we want to be able to make sure that as many people as want to get down there and utilize that waterfront have an opportunity to do it. So one of the things that we recommended is, first off, you know, we have a water taxi. You probably read a little bit about that. We have a water taxi, and that's allowed in the charter. What's not allowed is ticket sales. Think about that. So you have a business where people get on your boat at the downtown boat slip, but you're not allowed to sell them tickets. So you either have to sell them tickets on the boat, do the honor system, or they have to have a monthly pass. So making people able to sell tickets for the water taxi is a recommendation that we have in there. Another recommendation we have in there is to allow for potentially, I mean, I would say this is not required, but allow for non-motorized rentals of kayaks, paddle boards, paddle boats, things that will bring, again, families, tourists, citizens down there to use that space. And then there's some other. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
These are things specifically excluded by the charter now.
Well,
or is it just kind of an ambiguous?
Well, no. So that's a great point. So when you think of the charter, obviously you think of the Constitution. These are empowering documents. These are documents that create the government. And it's, in the case of the charter, it's the legislature and the citizens of the city coming together to say, you are empowered to create the city of Clearwater. Just like the states, the colonies came together and said, you know, with the citizens, we're going to create the federal constitution. Well, what does the federal constitution do? The federal constitution is an empowering document. It creates branches of government and gives them powers. What didn't it do? It didn't restrict a lot, so that's why we have the Bill of Rights, obviously, right? So it created the Constitution, and then the compromise was, as soon as the Constitution is passed, we're going to pass the Bill of Rights, and that's going to limit the government from acting. In our charter is 15 pages. 75% of it is talking about limiting the city from doing stuff. So instead of empowering the city, it really restricts the city from doing basically anything that, and I don't want to say anything, but it greatly limits the city's ability to participate in economic development, it needs to be revised to provide a little more flexibility when it comes to attracting jobs, creating jobs, engaging the community, and you know, keeping our quality of life and our character of our community going. Because when you don't have economic development, you get aging housing market, which we have. You get aging housing stock. You get to a stagnant place where, you know, you're going to start to shrink, and the quality of life, the tax base, what the city can provide in terms of services are going to get denigrated. For example, one of the things here is the city is not allowed to lease city-owned property. Now, this is city-owned property. The city is not allowed to lease city-owned property for more than 35 years. Well, what does that do when you have a large piece of property that you want to bring in a private developer to develop a $4 or $5 or $10 million project? 35-year lease isn't going to finance for a project that big. So, you know, we've got a suggestion here to allow them to lease for up to 65 years. It doesn't require them to lease for up to 65 years. It just gives the economic development and the city council the ability to do that for the right project. So when you're talking about the bluff, it doesn't say you can't sell tickets, but what it says is you can't do anything except for these things. So what you can do are exceptions to the you can't do anything, which is why we need to say except build, renovate, repair, maintain, and relocate a band shell, as opposed to just say the band shell is going to be right here. So so when you read the charter, it's like I said, it's very specific exceptions to that you can't do anything in this area. And so these are going to be these are going to be exceptions. So, you know, except kayak rentals, paddleboard rentals, and those types of things. So most of those issues are related to the downtown marina. Again, I don't think any of those are too controversial, but we'll see. Yeah, Bernie, go ahead.
What does it take to change the charter? What's the mechanism that's going to popular vote?
Yep, there's a referendum election on March 16th, which is, as you all know, the presidential preference primary and our city election in Clearwater. And we've got the mayor and 2 council members up for re-election. And we'll have these charter questions on the ballot at the same time. That's basically the highlight of the Charter Review Committee was this Economic Development Urban Land Institute report and trying to enable the city to engage a little bit more in economic development activities and create some jobs and kind of activate the community. And it was also laying the groundwork for this longer term, more detailed process when it comes to the actual specific Bluff Master Plan, which again, the city's going to create a broad sector of city stakeholders and have them working with a consultant to put that plan together over probably 2018. So that's been the major focus for me over the last 9 months is working with this Charter Review Committee, working with the Chamber, and trying to come up with some suggestions that will make Clearwater more business friendly, better place, and give us the tools we need to be successful going forward. In the Chamber, we're focused on 3 things. I think we're best known for government affairs and public relations, government relations. You know, it's not easy necessarily to navigate locally through all the different agencies and entities that you got to work with to do development. Y'all know we've got a bunch of acronyms and abbreviations: PPC, MPO, your CDB, your DDB, CDP, all these groups you have to work with to get things done. So we help navigate those areas for businesses and hopefully help local economic development agencies recruit businesses and assist them with when they're having issues with trying to answer businesses' concerns as well. So that's been our main focus, but we also focus on economic development, which I've talked about a little bit, and then tourism. Tourism is our third leg, our third major focus. And you know, a lot of people don't realize Clearwater has been setting records for the last 5 years. We have more than 1 million tourists each year staying in Clearwater, just in Clearwater. That accounts for about 38% of our bed tax dollars. So that's something that obviously we're proud of, but we want to make sure that we see those bed tax dollars really used equitably and fairly across the county, and that, you know, deserving either projects or marketing tools are, again, spread fairly and equitably across the county between North and South County. That's going to be a discussion that we're obviously engaged with going forward, as some of those long-term obligations from the TDC start going away, and some of that TDC money is starting to get reallocated or allocated in different ways. So obviously that's something that we're going to be very focused on. The city, I think a lot of people don't know how this actually ended up happening, but we have a comprehensive long-term plan for the beach called Beach by Design, which was a real innovative document back in 2000. And Beach by Design created different districts on the beach and created a different plan for each district and talked specifically about, you know, we're going to want a parking garage here so we can create a pedestrian district here. We're going to require no off-street parking here so that we can encourage people to park in the garage and walk around and enjoy the street and those kind of things. But I also talked a lot about condominiums in certain areas of the beach, and so back when you had 2005, 2006, you had a lot of condo projects that were approved on the beach. Then, of course, we had the Great Recession. A lot of those projects didn't finance, and the city realized it had an issue. And what was the issue? Well, we had two resort hotels that are beautiful that were developed, and then we had a third one that was approved and is now being developed, but that everyone knew was going to eventually be developed. We lost a lot of those mid-sized, mid-range, what we call limited services hotels. We lost a lot of those, you know, $89 a night to $200 a night rooms. And we didn't want to lose those rooms. So instead of focusing on condo development from that point on, the city created what was called a density reserve pool for limited service hotels. And what that meant is, if you owned a 1 acre piece of property and you were allowed to do 50 units an acre, we were going to create a density pool that allowed you to do 100 units per acre if you were doing a limited service hotel. In other words, if you were filling this market that we needed. They created 1,300 rooms in that pool, and pretty much every single one of them is now either approved or developed. And I thankfully, through our friends Ed Hooper and Joe Burdett, were involved with, I think, at least 11 of those approvals. So it's been a busy few years. But that has to be recognized as a major achievement in terms of getting that tourism market where it is today. The tourism market in Clearwater would not be there if it was not for that foresight. So that's kind of a well-kept secret in terms of, you know, you didn't read about it in the newspaper. It's not something a lot of people talk about, but the city really did a great job back in like 2007, 2008 in recognizing their problem with the condo market and then pivoting to attract those family-oriented hotel units, which you see going up on the beach right now. And that's great because we never wanted to lose the identity of being a family-oriented destination. We don't want to be, you know, strictly a nighttime destination. And frankly, you know, there's a portion of the city that is concerned about, you know, some of the stuff that happens after midnight right now with the bars staying up until 3 a.m. But we really want to focus on a family-oriented destination. And that's, I think, really what we've been known for over the years, and I think we will continue to be known for that going forward with this these new limited service hotels that are going up and really going to serve those family needs. So.
Is that success of that planning on Clearwater Beach, is that translated all to the need for planning on the bluff area? People
it's a great
say,
question.
oh, well, it's not the same thing.
It's a great question. Not every
can you use that success to kind of pull people together?
Not every plan is created equal. And so we have a downtown plan. It's created in 2004. It's like 700 pages long. Downtown Master Plan for Clearwater. In my opinion, and I've made the city known, you know, aware of this. In my opinion, that plan, there was never a market there for that plan. That plan, in my opinion, does not work with the market. And unfortunately, you know, I'll give you an example. You can look this up in the newspaper. I had a project where my client wanted to build a Walgreens at the corner of Myrtle and Court Street. It is the old Parthenon building. If you ever drove to the beach and you looked over at that big white, purple, green building with overgrown stuff, everyone said, "What is that?" That's what the Parthenon building is. So my client had an agreement from Walgreens to build a Walgreens there, had an agreement to buy the property from the property owner, but the city planning department said, well, that's not an intense enough use for us. We want that to be a mixed use, you know, 20-story building or 10-story building and residential and retail. There's no market for that right now. And you know, how hard is it to redevelop a Walgreens when the market is there for a higher and better use? It's not like an oppressive use of Walgreens. You know, you could probably flip one of those into something more intense in, you know, a year or two. It's really not like it's going to take that property off the grid. But the planning staff fought us tooth and nail on that. And to the point now where that Parthenon property has $250,000 in municipal liens on it because they wouldn't approve this Walgreens, and I had to go to the Community Development Board and have a 3-hour evidentiary hearing where I won. So we got the Walgreens approved, but it took 2 years. And so, you know, that downtown plan, that's an example of the plan if the plan really says there needs to be a 20-story mixed-use building there, well, there's not a market there for that yet. And so we need a transitional plan to develop that downtown where it's ready for when the market's ready for that. So the other thing to keep your eye on, and I haven't passed judgment on this yet, but they're doing the same thing with US 19 in Clearwater. So they have a US 19 plan that is similar to the downtown plan, similar to Beach by Design as well. They're very detailed plans. They're good plans. The work product is outstanding. I mean, the people that are in the planning department of Clearwater are amazing. I mean, they're absolutely brilliant professionals, you know, college level, professorial level planners that are a joy to work with, honestly, in terms of the intellectual gratification you get with, you know, working with them. But they're stuck with these plans, you know, and so with downtown, I've said for years, you just need to scrap the downtown plan and make it new. They have been reluctant to do that. With Beach by Design, it's, you know, amazing. It hit it right out of the park, and they've been adapting to continue to hit it out of the park even through the recession. So that one was perfect. So in terms of the Beach by Design trickling into the downtown, you haven't seen it yet. And that's not necessarily because, you know, it's hard to build a Walgreens downtown. But I think it goes more to activating that bluff area and giving tourists a reason to come downtown as opposed to just drive through it. But I do want to close my thought on the US 19 plan. Keep your eye on that. I certainly intend to. But you might recall that they suggested that we have a moratorium on development on US 19 while this plan was being finalized. And we came together with the community as a chamber and opposed that. Because first off, the plan hasn't been approved yet. It's probably got another 6 months to a year, and we can't have private property owners prevented from selling their property, leasing their property, developing their property for a year to 18 months. We can't afford that right now, you know. And to me, I haven't seen enough information yet to be convinced that this US 19 plan is really going to hit it out of the park. I hope it does, and it could. But that's something that we're watching very closely. So yeah. Yes, sir.
The Beach by Design plan, when they brought the bonus density pool in, that was critical to saving hotels on the beaches. I mean, it was really an inequity in the feasibility of what you could pay for dirt, and basically everybody was buying land for condos. And you know what you could afford to pay for a condo unit density versus a hotel unit density, entirely different equations. That's why they had to bring that density bonus pool into play to balance out that land feasibility. And then speaking of the bluff plan, you know, every downtown loves mixed use. They want to put mixed use in all these, but it's rarely feasible. You know, it's feasible at the tail end, but trying to get all those components to fire on all cylinders at the same time is really tough.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I mean, again, on Coachman Park, what we're looking for is really more of a feel like in Atlanta. I can't remember the name of the park, but there's a one-story restaurant, beautiful outdoor, amenity that serves weddings and groups and things. And then it's just this beautiful park, that people enjoy. And we're not talking about a lot of high, intense development in the park itself. We're just talking about low impact things that will attract people to use it, and then that will hopefully have the effect of bringing people and activity downtown so that other areas of downtown can then be redeveloped into higher and more intense uses. So
I guess the downtown plan was 2005.
2004, yeah.
I guess there's one major property owner today that's probably accumulated significant amount of property since that plan and changes the dynamic of the downtown from when that plan was created.
There certainly is, there's two groups that are buying up property downtown. One of them's the city, and one of them's the other group that you're mentioning.
Because I think, a lot of the downtown development revitalization has been getting people to live down in downtown.
That's right, yeah.
You can get people to come from out and in some, but a lot of communities I visit around the country, they've got other people living in the downtown community, and that kind of thing is part of the neighborhood amenity.
Right, yeah, and so the city has done a really great job of bringing jobs into downtown. I do want to make that clear. So we have existing buildings that have been there since probably the 70s or 80s that are full. And those are a lot of tech jobs, and a lot of younger professionals are coming in there, and so that's great. They've done the 600 building. Yeah, they've done a great job of attracting jobs into those buildings, and they've also done a good job of acquiring a lot of property and putting it out for RFP so that we can build apartments and things like that that would then hopefully get those folks, especially those younger folks that are working in downtown Clearwater, to actually live in the apartment that's there. Again, that was one of our issues, is the aging housing stock. But that next step is then going to be the retail restaurant component, that nightlife component, the thing that Dunedin has, the thing that Safety Harbor has, where people actually want to go there, at night and have a meal or relax or walk the streets and window shop. And so I do think the city's done a great job with downtown, with what it has to work with. I just think this downtown plan from 2004, it was really anticipating a market that was going to hopefully exist without the recession. The recession hit, and the beach is definitely back up and running, but downtown just isn't yet. So we're getting there, but I think that especially the regulations, design guidelines, restrictions related to retail and restaurant uses, you can't have artwork outside in terms of, we had our Tony's Pizza try to put a little pizza guy, kind of outside on the sidewalk. Well, that was a violation. There needs to be a little more flexibility. Now, I understand you don't want businesses on US 19 putting sandwich boards out. Like, that's a complete hazard. You don't want that. But you do, you can be flexible enough to recognize that in certain areas of the city, sandwich boards are okay. So that's the type of thing that we're working.
Understanding that putting sandwich boards out at 19 with less than a 7-second view is not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly.
But what do you think the start of that redevelopment plan will happen?
The Bluff Master Plan?
Yeah.
I believe the city has allocated the funds to engage the consultant. That's going to help the citizen group. This referendum for the current charter provision is March 2016, so I would think sometime thereafter, probably in the summer after that.
And just kind of a side question, not necessarily fitting with what you're talking about specifically, but as I look through some of the other areas, and one of the last being the no action, being appointing a task force to look at and advise whether or not a strong mayor is something that what do you think about that? What is that? Is that in the running, or is that something that's just going to be something that might be looked at in the long term?
Yeah, well, we have a charter review every 4 years. So every 4 years, the form of government comes up between council manager form and strong mayor form. With strong mayor, obviously, we're referring to the type of system that Tampa and St. Petersburg have with Mayor Buckhorn and Mayor Kreisman versus the system that we have in Clearwater and pretty much everywhere else in Pinellas County, which is a city manager that manages the staff and the day-to-day operations, and a council that essentially sets the policy, sets the land use and zoning, and sets the budget. they do not manage or control the staff. So the manager controls the staff and takes direction from the council, but the council doesn't get involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. And this year, I didn't think we'd have much interest in that question this year. It had been discussed, 15 years ago. It was discussed 5 years ago, and has never been put on the ballot in Clearwater. I really thought this year would be mainly focused on the Urban Land Institute and economic development opportunities, and that would be the main focus. And that was also, again, a major focus. But there was a significant amount of interest from the committee members in recommending a strong mayor form this time, which really was surprising to me. The reason stated from those folks was they felt like it would potentially allow the city to avail itself of more economic development opportunities more easily if you had an elected strong mayor who could go, recruit, engage, businesses, entrepreneurs, job creators, and bring them to the city. And I think that that's based on the coverage that you see that, Mayor Baker got, and Mayor Kreisman gets, and Mayor Greco, Iorio, Buckhorn. They are covered differently. They have a different pulpit to work from than a mayor that's one of five. And, even on regional boards, that's true, and so we discussed all that. But what we also recognized here in Clearwater is we have been incredibly stable under the leadership of Bill Horn for 15 or 16 years. He's done an amazing job through both economic, where you had an economy that was booming to a recession. He's done an incredible job, and he's kept it stable. The other thing we recognize too is that, St. Petersburg's got 220,000 residents, Tampa's got even more than that, Clearwater has 110,000. So we're not the same size in terms of those other communities that really might lend themselves more easily to a strong mayor form. So there's pros and cons, obviously, with both, but we felt like now wasn't the right time to pursue the issue because city manager is doing a great job. He's been very steady, and he doesn't plan to retire. He told us that he plans to work with a fourth mayor. He's worked with 3 so far, and we took that to mean, into 2020 and beyond. But what we came to the conclusion of was a natural time for the community to have this discussion would be kind of around the time when Mr. Horn decides that, he'd like to move on and retire. And that being potentially 4, 5, 6 years away, that over the next few years, maybe 2018, the council should engage the community to see if there really is a community interest in this topic. There was a lot of interest in our committee members, but a lot of our committee members are more involved, more engaged. They're the volunteers. They're the ones that are working on the downtown partnership or the jazz holiday or the boat races or all the things that are going on. And so we need to know from our folks in the neighborhoods, is this something you're interested in or not? And so we think that the city should engage a special group to just go around, and have town hall forums and discuss this issue and provide a little education. Personally, I would love the question to be answered just so we could be done with it. It comes up every 4 years. We've talked about it ad nauseum. And I think the citizens deserve to answer the question at some point, and then we can move on one way or the other. But I don't feel super strongly one way or the other. I think both of them have pros and cons, and I recognize that. So, yeah, and that was really our discussion on that this time. So, okay, anything else? Or
Brian, you mentioned extending the length that the city can do a lease to 65 years.
Yes, sir.
Was there talk of going to 99?
So right now what it says is they can do a lease for 35 years with one 35-year extension. So what we're going to say is they can go to 65 years with one 30-year extension. So it would be 95.
Gotcha.
It is. Yes, it is. Yes.
Is there any discussion on the airport, Clearwater Airport? I fly small planes out of there. And
On Hercules?
yeah, I love the place, and it's a lot of people probably aren't even aware it's the highest elevation airport in the Tampa Bay area.
Really? I did not know that.
It's about 70 feet above sea level. If there's ever the major one hits, that's where the C-130s can land. The
Wow.
planes are long enough to do that. A lot of people just aren't aware, and there's been some talk about putting in a permanent terminal. Right now there's modulars that would have a restaurant similar to what's down in Elwood. but I'm just curious if there's any discussion on that, because the Marine and the airport are kind of like tied together with the oversight.
Yeah, I don't know any current discussion on that. I mean, it certainly wasn't anything we would have dealt with the charter, but in terms of the Chamber or Economic Development Opportunities, I'll make sure we look into that, because we certainly want to be supportive of that, absolutely. So yeah, thank you for telling me about that. Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything. Well, thank you guys for being here, appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, of course.
Wish we had a bigger group
That's
for
okay.
you. But personally, I like the smaller group. The ability for us to just have a really
Someday they'll be interesting.
an informal conversation with you. I've learned a lot this morning, and appreciate you sharing what you shared.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Be willing to come out.